My husband asked me to be his cosigner and stormed out when I said no. Basically what the post says. He was checking for a way to get his students' loans reduced and merged or something like that by filling out a form, and then he got to the end and said, "Great. Now we just have to sign this and all be done." I was very confused on why I needed to sign anything, and he mentioned that I was going to be his cosigner. To which I responded we needed to do more research because I don't want to be in debt. He just stormed out. I just became a resident 2 months ago and I've never had any kind of debt. I don't even have a job yet, and I just don't want to even think about owning anything to anyone. When we got married I knew that I wasn't going to be responsible for his debt, and that made me feel better and more sure about my decision. Of course I want to help him pay for it, but I don't feel comfortable being responsible for it myself. IDK. Any advice? Update. Thanks for the advice. I agree it's something to talk about, and I guess it was just late and he didn't want to discuss it further. But I saw it as just leaving the room without a conversation. AKA storming off. When I said I don't have a job yet, I meant I don't have a good job with benefits. I'm working part-time, but I make almost the same amount he does. We are both looking for new jobs and have shared half of everything financially except his student debt. I'm a person who saves a lot, and anytime anything last minute comes up, like us needing a new car or having to pay a lot in advance for something, it comes from my savings and he pays me later. He always does. I just don't really want to have this debt, and he was just following steps on a form, so I wonder if there's a way to do it so I don't have to be his cosigner. It's a lot to think about and talk at a more convenient moment. I think it's alarming that he just nonchalantly mentioned you co-signing. No discussion beforehand, and expected it done right there? Is this his level of communication with other things? Having learned the hard way. Don't co-sign for anyone ever. After more than a decade of marriage, I co-signed 2 loans for my husband. At the time. A year later, he asked about my merging his substantial credit card debt, 50 kelvins, into the mortgage. The bank wouldn't refinance. A year later, he left the marriage and refused to make payments on his loans. I'm still paying them off years later. Don't co-sign. He just suddenly springs this up on you? Then pull the whole sulking episode. EA. My advice is that don't co-sign, no matter how much temper tantrum and guilt trip he tried to put on you. He wouldn't want to be responsible on your loans. Would he? Maybe his parents will be fine to be his co-signers. The people who are saying you should have just signed, when you haven't even stated the amount, have lost their bloody minds. Student loan debt cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. She'd be stuck with it for life. If he needs a cosigner, his credit is probably crap, which means there is a chance he'll stop paying his bills, meaning she'd have no choice but to pay them if she doesn't want her credit wrecked too. And divorce does not free her from this obligation. He can be off plugging his secretary 5 years from now, and she'd still be stuck making payments on his $200K student loans. Don't ever co-sign for something you're not actually willing to pay off. Never sign anything you haven't read. That's basic adulting. He can sulk all he wants, but you need to have a conversation and make a plan together. He can't just do stuff on his own and expect you to take legal responsibility for choices he made by himself. My husband and I never legally joined any debt from prior to our marriage. There was simply no need, and it would have been irresponsible. However, we still viewed it as our collective debt and made a plan to pay it all off together, since it was beneficial to us as a couple to do so. There's literally no need to co-sign. If you co-sign the loan, you will be responsible for the debt, even if you divorce him. Y'all, of course he's paying for everything right now. She has only been a resident for 2 months. You are not responsible for his debt, married or not. It's concerning that instead of sitting down and answering any questions you had, he just stormed off like a child after deciding you were going to sign it without even talking to you about it. First, you don't have to combine finances, you don't have to do anything you aren't comfortable with. I would be weary of how things continue. Does he lack communication skills or something? Do not co-sign this loan. In the case of a divorce, student loan debt can't be shared like credit card debt. There is no reason for you to be on that loan. I think it's alarming that he tried to be sneaky about this. He did not discuss this with you prior. The amount, what the issues would be, etc. He just sprung it on you. Red flag. He mentioned that you were going to be his cosigner. Like he made the decision for you. Instead of discussing, asking. Red flag. When you informed him that you need to do research. You would be a fool not to do that. And that you do not want to be in debt. Something that everyone should aim for. He stormed out. Major red flag. I would advise you to please hold on to having kids with him anytime soon. Just see how good he is in resolving issues, communicating, etc. I mean, you realize that he just tried to get you to co-sign his debt without any questions. You just dodged a major bullet. There are couples who co-sign debts, but it is never ever done like this. There is communication, discussion and decisions involved which include both parties. Good thing that you refused. I'd question his motives. The fact he did not tell you. It's a warning sign to me. Don't ever co-sign for anyone. That's including your husband. He will find a way and you need to think about your future. I don't know what your relationship is like, but if doesn't pay, they will come after you. If you co-sign and he defaults, it becomes your debt and they collect it from you. Please don't co-sign. Wife is in financial trouble for co-signing with her ex-husband. Sounds like there was no communication beforehand. So unless you know exactly what you're signing, do not sign your life away. I really think it should be required that our ages be given to give advice on here. You absolutely did the right thing. Op. For not agreeing to sign your name. The way your husband sprung that on you was not okay at all. It is not just a piece of paper as one comment suggested, but a commitment. Please do research that you'll not find in this relationship advice subreddit if you haven't made a final decision. He needs to at the very least explain why he needs you to sign. You also need to know the terms and how much he owes. IDK if you're in the USA and IDK how other countries do this, but also check what his credit score is. I'm guessing it's going to be low. So, what is the reason? Does he have a history of not paying his debts? I could come up with more, but you get the idea. My score is in the excellent range and I'm 50 years old. I've probably spent way too much time on Reddit, but did anyone else get the vibe Op's hubby planned to get her saddled with his debt from before they married? Ready to disappear into the night when someone else takes his fancy? Like she mentions that part of what made it feel okay to go into the marriage is that they'd discussed how she wouldn't be responsible for his debt, and then he fills in a bunch of forms and casually mentions she's gonna be responsible now, so sign here. Especially following his blowing up at her for wanting to discuss and research options first after he's the one who blindsided her in the first place. Almost like he's trying to manipulate her into doing what he wants by making her feel guilty for not supporting him like married people should. No, his bills are his problem. Do not cosign anyone else's debts. Wow, I'm glad I read all this. My first reaction was, well, you're married and that's part of the deal. Cosign. After reading other people's experiences. Girls, stay far away from those documents.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.